I don't want a woman with a belly like a monster. You'll have to raise the child by yourself. As I looked down at my swollen belly, 9 months pregnant, his eyes were filled with disgust, and a crude smile stretched across his lips. I had always anticipated this day would come. Despite foreseeing such an event, I calmly went to my room and returned with a document in hand. Fine. Here are the divorce papers. I thrust the prepared documents toward Anton. His face twisted in shock as he exclaimed, "What the hell? What's this all of a sudden?" "Well, it was your idea, wasn't it? Now sign it quickly. I'll submit it tomorrow." I challenged him, my voice firm. His face turned red in an instant, my words stinging him like a slap. "Watch closely. I'll make you regret the way you've treated me and look down on me all this time." I declared firmly, "My name is Helen. I'm a 26-year-old housewife. Until 2 years ago, I was working for a mobile company. That's where I met Anton Cade, my boss, when I was 24. It didn't take long for us to fall in love and get married. Anton, 3 years older than me, was reliable, especially when he was teaching me the ins and outs of the job. As a newcomer to the department with no prior experience, I was incredibly grateful for his precise guidance. We became friends and frequently had dinner together. When he asked me out, I was over the moon, especially since I had never dated anyone before. It's a bit embarrassing to admit, but I was always more interested in 2D characters than real men. Being a cartoon enthusiast, I had never felt the need to be in a relationship. However, seeing my high school and college classmates getting married one after another, I started feeling the pressure. When I fell in love with Anton, I secretly vowed that he would be my first and last love. So, when we started dating and got married a year later, I was overjoyed. Anton was handsome and popular among our female coworkers. I was proud to be his wife, and many congratulated us, saying things like, "Congratulations. Though I'm a little jealous, I wish you both happiness." Basking in this newfound joy, I couldn't have imagined the storm that lay ahead. "You're married to me now, so you'll quit your job, right?" The day after we submitted our marriage registration, as we eagerly started our new life together, Anton dropped this bombshell. "I informed him yesterday," he added casually. It was as if he had already decided for me. Obviously, I've always wanted my wife to focus solely on household matters. "Don't worry, I can support both of us with my income." "But this is so sudden. You never mentioned this before." I protested. I had never heard Anton mention quitting my job before our marriage. I had started this job due to a recommendation from my father, and it wouldn't be right to leave without proper notice. I wanted to explain, but the sharp look in Anton's eyes warned me not to press the issue. Instinctively, I closed my mouth. "I admit I should have told you earlier, but what's done is done. Starting tomorrow, you don't need to go to work. I'll take care of the handover." Anton's tone left no room for discussion. His words hit me like a sudden storm, leaving me dizzy. But he was so firm and unwavering that I couldn't oppose him. After all, he had been my superior at work. Even though I had to leave my job without a proper farewell, I convinced myself that I had to make our marriage work. Anton had chosen me and entrusted me with household responsibilities. I wanted to meet his expectations. I didn't want to be seen as an incapable wife. With unwavering dedication, I threw myself into household chores. I prepared meals, making sure to cook Anton's favorite dishes, setting the table with as many options as possible. Although he ate everything without complaining, he never said whether it was delicious or not. I secretly wished he would offer a word of appreciation. I longed for recognition, especially after quitting my job and no longer having a professional identity. "I have an important meeting tomorrow. Is my jacket clean?" "Yes, of course," I replied. Anton seemed to have old-fashioned beliefs, showing a dominating side. I kept reminding myself how lucky I was to have married him and tried my best to meet his expectations. Without my own income, I had no other way of living independently. Although our relationship often felt more like that of an employer and a housemaid rather than husband and wife, our married life remained relatively smooth. However, one day, I felt ill and couldn't get out of bed. Feeling drained, I thought, I'll catch up on the housework tomorrow. Anton entered the bedroom, and snapped, "What are you doing? Get up and make some food." He kicked the blanket covering me. "I'm sorry. I'm feeling unwell today. Can you manage something for yourself?" I asked, hoping for some understanding. Instead of showing concern, he frowned and said, "You don't even work, and now you're lying down just because you're a little sick? How pathetic. Get up." Then he kicked me again. Shocked, I got up, unable to believe what had just happened. It was unimaginable that my husband would treat his sick wife this way. I never saw this side of him before marriage. Perhaps it was my fault for not noticing, but this was too much. I did my chores while crying. Several days passed, but my health didn't improve. Then I realized I had missed my period. My heart pounded as I rushed to the drugstore to buy a pregnancy test. As soon as I took the test, I saw the 2 lines. It was positive. Overcome with joy, tears welled up in my eyes. I decided to share the news with Anton when he got home. My spirits lifted instantly. That night, Anton returned home past midnight. As soon as he walked in, the strong smell of alcohol hit me, making me nauseous. His face was flushed, and he staggered as he walked. He had been drinking heavily without informing me beforehand, even though I had prepared dinner for us. Despite that, I was eager to share the news of our baby. With excitement surging through me, I told my intoxicated husband, "Yes, I haven't been to the doctor yet, so it's not confirmed, but..." Before I could finish, I saw Anton's face darken. "A child? What have you done?" His voice was unusually cold, sending a chill down my spine. "Huh, I don't want a child. Damn it, this is the worst. If you're to have it, raise it yourself." His cruel words cut to me like a knife. He rudely stripped off his clothes and headed to the bathroom, leaving me standing there in shock. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. Instead of celebrating our baby, he threw out such heartless, irresponsible words. Why would he say something like that? The joy I had felt just moments ago was instantly replaced with profound sorrow. Why would he say such heartless things? He had never once mentioned not wanting children. We hadn't even used contraception, so I had naturally assumed that we both desired a family. For him to tell his pregnant wife that having a child was the worst possible outcome was beyond my comprehension. As I was hanging up Anton's jacket and about to place his shirt in the laundry, something caught my eye. "What's this?" A crumpled piece of paper peeked out from his pocket. I pulled it out and immediately recognized the texture. It was a receipt. At first, I assumed it was just from his gathering that night, and I was about to discard it. But then my eyes locked onto the name of the establishment. A motel. My hands trembled as I examined the receipt, my pulse quickening with dread. The name was unmistakably that of motel. The weight of this revelation crashed down on me like an unbearable burden. Does Anton not love me anymore? Isn't marriage supposed to be a bond between 2 people who cherish each other? We had been married for just over a year. How could he betray me like this? I had spent years lost in fictional love stories, never engaging in a real relationship. Perhaps that was why I had been so naive. The harsh reality of my marriage struck me like a cruel slap. Yet, as the idea of Anton's betrayal settled in, everything started making sense. Had Anton been using me from the very beginning? Did he truly love the woman he was cheating with while keeping me around merely as a convenient housekeeper? Doubts and suspicions swirled inside me, suffocating me. Was this why he reacted so harshly when he learned about my pregnancy? Nausea overcame me, but this time it wasn't from morning sickness. It was from disgust. The more I thought about it, the more the pieces fit together. Could his mistress have been working at the company? Was that why he forced me to quit my job? Had I been nothing more than a stepping stone in his life? Discarded the moment I no longer served a purpose? Reality blurred with my suspicions, but one thing remained undeniable: the cruel words he had hurled at me after learning about our baby. That day, I resolved to uncover the truth. From that moment on, I kept a close watch on Anton, determined to gather proof of his infidelity. His behavior toward me turned even colder. It was as if he resented me for being pregnant, as though my very presence annoyed him. Despite my morning sickness, he deliberately ate pungent foods near me, making my nausea worse. He nitpicked my household chores, forcing me to redo them even when they were already spotless. My body, already struggling with the strain of pregnancy, endured even more hardships, while my heart grew heavier with each passing day. Yet, I remained steadfast in my pursuit of the truth. Anton guarded his phone like a lifeline, never letting it out of his sight. He even took it to the bathroom with him, making it impossible for me to sneak a look. One evening, when I slipped into his study, I found everything unervingly organized. There was no evidence of an affair, no stray messages or misplaced documents. Anton was meticulous, a trait I had admired in the past, but now it only made it more difficult to catch him off guard. I checked his pockets regularly, hoping to find more receipts or clues. But he was cautious, and my investigation was proving fruitless. The thought of hiring a private investigator crossed my mind, but without my own income, I couldn't afford such an endeavor. Then one day, an unexpected phone call changed everything. It was my father. He rarely called, given his demanding schedule, so I was immediately curious about the reason behind it. "Hello? It's me, your dad. How are you?" His familiar voice carried a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. "Dad? What's wrong? Aren't you busy with work?" I asked, surprised. "My employees are handling things well, so I'm not as busy," he replied. My father was the CEO of a company in Canada, a workaholic who had dedicated his life to his business. I didn't have many childhood memories of playing with him, but I had always respected his unwavering dedication. So why was he calling me now? What's going on? I pressed, sensing an underlying urgency in his tone. The next words that came out of his mouth sent a jolt of shock through me. "Is this really true?" I asked, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Yes, he's not the type to lie." "I need you to trust me," my father reassured. At first, I was too stunned to respond. But as the missing pieces clicked into place, a wave of clarity washed over me. Relief. For the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't losing my mind. "Thank you, Dad. I'll handle it," I said, my voice filled with gratitude before ending the call. I had finally uncovered the truth. And yet, despite the satisfaction of knowing, my emotions were in turmoil. Anger, frustration, betrayal. Anton continued to act indifferent toward me, his behavior worsening despite my pregnancy. Every time he treated me with cold disregard, my hatred for him deepened. Months passed, and the distance between us became an unbridgeable chasm. Then, one fateful night, an incident occurred that shattered everything. At 9 months pregnant, I had learned to tread cautiously around Anton. I lived in a constant state of apprehension, avoiding conflict, retreating into silence. That evening, I prepared dinner as usual. Anton returned home, and we sat at the dining table. I ate quietly, careful not to provoke him. But then, bang, he slammed his fork down onto the table. "What the hell is this?" "It's tasteless," he snapped, his voice laced with irritation. Before I could react, he grabbed the plate and hurled it onto the floor. The food I had painstakingly prepared splattered across the tiles. Shock coursed through me. What is wrong with him? The anger that had been simmering within me for months finally threatened to boil over. "I've noticed for a while now, your cooking has become bland and unappetizing," Anton sneered. I clenched my fists under the table. Yes, I had been using less seasoning to make healthier meals for the baby. But if he wanted more salt, he could add it himself. Why did he have to degrade me like this? I opened my mouth to argue, but before I could speak, he smirked cruelly and delivered the final blow. "Humph. I don't want a woman with a belly like a monster." I froze. "You'll have to raise the kid on your own," he spat, his lips curling into a vile grin. His eyes gleamed with malice. I had always known, deep down, that this day would come. I had tried to ignore the warning signs, to believe things would change. But now, reality slapped me across the face. Without a word, I rose from my seat. I walked to my room, retrieved the prepared document, and returned to face him. "Fine," I said, my voice steady. "Here are the divorce papers." I threw them onto the table in front of him. Anton's smirk faltered, his expression contorted in disbelief. "What the hell?" "What is this all of a sudden?" he shouted. I met his glare with unwavering resolve. "Well, this was your idea. Now sign it. I'll be submitting it tomorrow," I declared, his face flushed with rage as my words hit him like a whip. "Watch closely, Anton," I added, my voice sharp with conviction. "I'll make sure you regret ever looking down on me." This was the moment everything changed. The joy I had experienced just a moment ago was instantly replaced with profound sorrow. How could he utter such heartless words? He had never once expressed a desire to remain childless. We hadn't even been using any preventive measures, so I naturally assumed we both wished to have children. For him to tell his pregnant wife that having a child was the worst thing imaginable was beyond comprehension. As I hung up Anton's jacket and reached for his shirt to take it to the laundry, something unusual caught my attention. "What's this?" A piece of paper peeked out from the pocket of his dress shirt. The moment I touched it, I recognized its texture. It was a receipt. Initially, I thought it was just proof of purchase from his gathering earlier that night, and I was about to dispose of it. However, my gaze froze upon noticing the name of the establishment. "Is this a motel?" My hand trembled as I clutched the receipt, my pulse quickening. The name printed on it confirmed my worst fear. It was indeed from a motel. A wave of devastation crashed over me, weighing heavily on my heart. Does Anton not love me anymore? Isn't marriage supposed to be a sacred bond between two people who cherish one another? We had only been married for just over a year. How could this be happening? For years, I had been lost in fictional romances, never truly engaging in real relationships. Now, faced with this cruel reality, I struggled to accept it. However, the thought of Anton's infidelity began to take shape, and suddenly, many pieces of the puzzle started falling into place. Had Anton been using me from the very beginning of our marriage? Was he genuinely in love with the woman he was having an affair with while I was nothing more than a convenient housekeeper? These doubts swirled within me, unsettling my already fragile emotions. Was this why he had reacted so harshly upon learning of my pregnancy? As these thoughts consumed me, nausea churned in my stomach, reinforcing my suspicions. Yes, there was no doubt now. Perhaps the reason he forced me to quit my job was that his mistress worked there. Everything was beginning to make sense, as if he had married me solely for stability, not love. The line between reality and my assumptions blurred, but one undeniable truth remained. His heartless words the night he learned about my pregnancy. That night, I made a decision. I would gather evidence of Anton's betrayal. From then on, his cold behavior toward me was unmistakable. It was as though he resented me for becoming pregnant. Despite knowing I was suffering from severe morning sickness, he would deliberately eat foods with strong odors around me, making my nausea worse. He nitpicked my housework, forcing me to redo tasks unnecessarily. My pregnant body endured unbearable strain, and my heart grew heavier with each passing day. Still, I persisted in my silent investigation. Anton never let his phone out of sight, even taking it with him to the bathroom, making it impossible for me to glimpse anything suspicious. When I secretly searched his study, everything was neat and organized, with no evidence of wrongdoing. He was meticulous at work, and his desk was always in perfect order. I realized it would be incredibly difficult to catch him off guard. Determined, I frequently checked his pockets for any potential clues, such as receipts, but my efforts proved fruitless. The idea of hiring a private investigator crossed my mind, but I lacked the financial means to do so. One evening, as I sat deep in thought, pondering my next move, my phone suddenly rang. I glanced at the screen. It was my father. He rarely called. So I immediately wondered about the reason for his unexpected contact. "Hello? It's me, your dad. How are you?" His familiar voice carried warmth. I was taken aback, considering his demanding schedule. His call came as a surprise. "Dad? What's going on? Aren't you busy with work?" I asked curiously. "My employees have been managing well, so I'm not as occupied lately," he replied casually. My father, the CEO of a company in Canada, had always been a workaholic. Growing up, I had few memories of spending time with him, yet I deeply respected his dedication to his career. His unexpected call left me wondering, what could be so urgent? So, what's happening? I asked, waiting for his response. The words that followed shook me to my core. Is that really true? I asked in disbelief. Yes, he's not the type to lie. I need you to believe me, my father assured me. I was momentarily speechless, my mind struggling to process the truth. But as the missing pieces began to align, an unexpected sense of relief washed over me. Thank you, Dad. I'll do my best, I said, gratitude lacing my voice before ending the call. My persistent efforts were finally bearing fruit, but the newfound knowledge stirred a mix of emotions, anger, betrayal, and an insatiable desire for justice. The tension between Anton and me escalated further. Despite my pregnancy, he continued to act cold and distant. With each passing day, resentment toward him grew deeper within me. Months went by, and our relationship remained strained. Eventually, an event occurred that shattered what little remained of our fragile bond. At 9 months pregnant, I was constantly on guard around Anton, living in a state of unease. I avoided unnecessary interactions with him, leading a quiet and suffocating existence. One evening, as always, I prepared dinner and waited for him to return home. When he arrived, we sat at the dining table in silence. Out of nowhere, Anton slammed his fork down with a loud clang. What is this? It's tasteless, he bellowed before violently throwing his plate onto the floor. I was stunned, unable to comprehend the sudden outburst. Watching the meal I had painstakingly prepared scattered across the floor, anger surged within me. I've been meaning to say this for a while now, but lately your cooking has been bland, Anton sneered. It was true that since becoming pregnant, I had reduced the use of seasoning to make our meals healthier. It was only a temporary change for the baby's well-being. If he found the food lacking in flavor, he could have simply added salt himself. Why did he have to treat me with such hostility? I was about to protest when he curled his lips into a cruel smirk and spat out words that sliced through me like a blade. Ha! I don't want a woman with a belly like a monster. You'll have to raise the child on your own. His gaze, filled with malice, locked onto my swollen stomach as a vulgar smile stretched across his lips. I had always feared this day would come. Even so, I had held on to a sliver of hope that things might turn out differently. But now, there was no room left for doubt. Without hesitation, I rose from my seat, went to my room, and retrieved the document I had been keeping for this very moment. Returning to the dining room, I placed it before Anton with unwavering resolve. Fine. Here are the divorce papers.